All right, guys, how are you? My name is Mr. Altieri. For those of you that don't know me yet, my role here at Fairfield Prep right now, I serve as the director of admissions, and now as your economics teacher. Excited to be with you guys for the year. I'm really excited to be back in the classroom. I taught for 13 years in the social studies department. I showed up on campus as a teacher in 2004 in the fall, and after graduating just 4 years earlier in the class of 2000, and I taught Western Civ for the first 5 years of my time in the classroom. 5 sections of Western Civ, and that was it. And then right around mid-year, year 5, students came to me and asked if we could bring back the economics class. And they went to the academic dean at the time, Dr. Andrade, and the principal, Dr. Parada, and they got together and figured out a way to bring economics back. And so I picked up that class at that point and carried that all the way through and taught Western Civ and economics all the way through year 13. Sprinkled in some Asian studies along the way, and got a whole lot of fun in the classroom with all the students, and again, that's why I'm super excited to be here with you guys. So we're here to talk about economics, to learn about economics, and I want to give you sort of a brief overview of the course and what we're going to look at. Again, this is a real high-level overview. We're not going to get into the weeds here, but essentially, I want to talk to you a little bit about why we're here, right? What are we going to do, and why are we here? So, essentially, what are we going to study, right? That's the big question. What are we going to study? And then the last thing is, or the next thing I should say, is why are we going to study it, right? So, what are we here for? What are we studying? And why? Why are we here to study that? And then I'm going to end this video with a brief homework assignment. Don't worry, won't take you very long. It'll be very, very simple. It'll just give us a nice little starting point for our conversation when we see each other in class again. So why are we studying this, right? That's the number one question. What are we studying, right? Not why quite yet. Not until we know what, right? So the first thing is we're going to study economics, the basic principles of economics. And essentially that can be broken down into this really, really clear statement. Economics is the study of decision making in the face of scarcity, right? So we all have to make decisions every single day, and those decisions are based on the fact that resources are not unlimited, right? They are limited. Some resources are more limited than others, and we'll talk about a lot of that as we go through this. But essentially, economics is that simple. It's the study of the decision making that people make in the face of scarcity. And then to get to that, we're going to study a whole lot of topics that are going to help us understand our decisions as individuals, understand our decisions as corporations, and understand our decisions as countries and nations. All right, and then we're also going to study personal finance, right? Because all of that's great, but we need to utilize that information personally, right? We will utilize it in our business lives. We'll utilize it perhaps in our government lives. Depends on who we are and what we end up doing. But all of us, no matter what, are going to need to utilize that in our personal lives. So we're going to talk a little bit about establishing a budget, right? And how to do that using a set of guiding principles and personal rules, right? So we'll talk a great deal when we get to that towards the second semester about guiding principles that exist in the world of finance, right? That help us. Simple ones, right? Don't spend more money than you have, right? Sounds simple. We'll talk about why it's not quite that simple, right? But essentially in principle, it's very simple, right? We don't spend more money than we have. That's a guiding principle of finance, right? And then each of us, because that's a sort of sliding scale, right? In terms of don't spend more money than you have. When we get there, we'll understand why that slides and what that is. But we all have to develop our own personal rules that are based on those guiding principles to help guide our own personal financial decisions. And then we'll talk a little bit about the basics of credit and borrowing, because we're going to use those personal rules when we start talking about our own borrowing habits, our own borrowing thresholds and how that's going to impact our credit and our credit worthiness, and therefore our ability to borrow. And then we're also going to talk about the basics of investing, right? Because again, that sliding scale that we talked about is not so much don't spend more than you have, right, on your possession in this moment, right? But don't spend more than you have can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people. There are certain formulas that we'll talk about as to figure out how that can be calculated for you based on your personal rules and the guiding principles. But again, when we borrow and invest at the same time, we can sort of funge those numbers. That's probably a terrible word, right? But we can take those figures and determine not just how much we have in our possession at this moment, but what's a reasonable amount of money to expect that we can borrow, that we can invest, use those things together to help put ourselves in the best financial position possible. And those decisions that we're going to make, understanding the economics, understanding the decision-making habits of human beings, understanding our own decision-making habits, and all of those things are going to help us as we start getting into the personal finance piece. Right? So then, why are we studying this, right? And if it wasn't clear enough with that whole what are we studying, right? Why are we studying this? I want it to be more than just the whole, well, we're here, right? So I'd say you answer that. It's an elective, right? You're here for a reason, right? You chose to be here. Nobody forced you to be here in this economics class. So I want you to think about it from that perspective. Why are you here, right? What do you want to get out of this? In general, what we want to get is essentially a way to make good choices, right? That's what we want out of our study of economics. How do we make good choices, right? Because no matter what, you can break it down, and we can talk about studying government decisions. We can talk about studying the decisions of entire nations. We can talk about studying the decisions of large groups of people and small groups of people and individuals. But essentially, what we're trying to do is understand how we can make the best decisions within our lives, right? And sometimes those decisions will be personal, and sometimes those decisions will be based on our business, and sometimes those decisions will be based on our government. But essentially, we want to make the best decisions for ourselves. So that's why we're here. We're studying essentially that the science, the social science of economics, so that we can understand how best to make our own decisions. We need to understand how humans tend to make decisions in general on a macro level in order to do that. And then we need to understand what we personally value, right? So what is it that is important to me? And how can I put that into the formulas that I build, right? Based on a basic understanding of how human beings tend to make decisions. Because in the long run, right, a lot of the things that we do naturally. We don't think about, right? So when we start to talk about our decision-making process, it's really important to understand human tendencies in general, because they're a lot easier to look at than analyzing our own decisions, right? So again, it's like the athlete that's just a super great athlete, right? You look at Wayne Gretzky. Wayne Gretzky failed as a coach, right? He did. I think he's a brilliant hockey player, one of the best hockey player ever to live, if you ask me. And he failed as a coach. And one of the reasons he failed as a coach is because things just come so naturally to him that he never really considered how to explain it to others. And that's really what we're looking at here, right? We need to understand on a macro level how human beings tend to make decisions so that we can make better sense of those decisions that are just innate to us, that are just things we do naturally. And then lastly, we want to use that to help inform our own personal financial decisions, right? So we're going to take a look at all of this so that in the end, again, we're better able to make our own decisions. And again, I wrote here personal financial decisions, but reality, it's really all decisions. What are we going to do to make the best decisions possible? So the thing that I want to leave you with at the end of this is that, right? We're here for our own ability to make the best decisions possible, right? We're studying all of these different things to help make sure that we're equipped with what we need to have to make those decisions and to be the best decision makers that we can be as we enter the world of college and beyond. And I'm really excited to be here to do that with you, to explore these things with you. It's quite an interesting time to be doing this. We've got a lot of things out there in the world that we can sort of look at and study and help to understand from a current events perspective, right? Between the economic impact of the pandemic to the election year to 1,000 different things that we're going to look at over the course of this year that are immediate to us. It's an exciting time to be learning this. So I'm thrilled to be here with you. I can't wait to see you guys. And until then, there should be a homework assignment right about here right now. It's a very, very simple Google form. And I just want you to take a look at that, complete it, and we'll use that as a springboard for our conversation in our first class. All right? Looking forward to seeing you soon.